Hey everyone, Mr. Weinland here, and I'm just ready to kind of go over what's going on in the world of history. As you can see, I've got my I Love Wednesdays shirt on. Woohoo! I'm recording this on Wednesday. I'm not going to tell you which day, but I think you can figure it out. Anyway, we are going to be continuing our talk of the Renaissance. We talked a little bit briefly about the Renaissance with Italy. We kind of talked a little bit about the Black Death and what it did in Europe, and that it kind of wiped out a big chunk of the population. It kind of left Europe in a bit of a damper. Like, man, where do we go from here? Like, feels like we have no hope. But the kind of the good news, which is sad because like 25 million people died. The good news is that it opened up the doors for other aspects of the economy, and it opened up a lot of avenues for certain individuals because there are less people now on that side of the world. And so you start to see a lot of these creative individuals come from Italy. And we talked a little bit about that and how they took advantage of these opportunities. And with the ports being there, with a lot of the church being there, created some new ideas, new aspects. There's a lot of wealth available as well, which helped with that as much as well. We're going to see those ideas come from Italy, and they're going to jump up north, or I should go this way, north to the other side, into your France, your Germanys, your England. So coming from Italy, going up north, and so we're going to talk a little bit about that. Just do your best. Definitely check out the questions in red. I've decided I'm not going to do definitions on these questions from here on out. Chapter 13, yeah, you still want to do the definitions there, but don't worry about chapter 15 or 16. Not going to worry about definitions. So the Northern Renaissance, let's kind of jump into this a little bit. Again, a lot of the Northern Renaissance is going to spread north. A lot of it's going to deal with trade. Trade is going to ultimately open up the avenues for things like the new artists. We see right around the 1200s and 1300s, we see a lot of movement throughout the cities, and we start to see up into Northern Europe, into Amsterdam, into your Paris, your Londons, where we're going to see a lot of these artists going to make their way there. And ultimately, we start to see a lot of new developments. Like printing is going to end up helping the Renaissance a lot, especially with the ideas to be spread. So let's talk a little bit about this. Trading was definitely a way to spread things. So we see that as cities grew, so did the trading networks. You saw that a lot of these individuals are hearing about, well, they have this down in Italy, they have this over here in Paris. Italy is so close to other Eastern European countries as well as the Asian countries. So we can try to get some of these resources. So we see a network had been building up until right around the 1200s to the 1400s of these merchants called the Hanseatic League. The Hanseatic League is Hanseatic League, sorry, protected members from the pirates and other hazards. You see, they build houses to kind of help protect their ships. And here's the thing. You're going to always have pirates. This has been something that I think we've kind of addressed and talked about. It's been shown in mankind that there's always going to be individuals looking to take what is not theirs because it has such good value. And so what we see is that these organizations are going to protect these members, these merchants, of their goods to ensure that they can get to their places on time and know the risks involved. And the other thing too is, especially if they're ships, they want to protect the shipments, especially at night. So lighthouses, that's going to help. We see new trading ideas start to be formed during this time. We see that a lot of these goods were important, especially spreading into the Italian Renaissance up north, especially. We see that this became a big deal. and we're not just talking about like trading goods necessarily. We're also trading like certain things that have new methods, new services. So like I said, like new painting strokes, new ways of writing, new ideas. It's not just the goods themselves, but we start to see that a lot of these goods, these ideas, are coming from Italy and they're heading up north. How are they getting there? Why are they getting there? Part of it is some are fleeing from violence. We see that some of these individuals are fleeing some sort of violence, or maybe they're fleeing because of some other methods, or maybe they're um, being persecuted in some ways. Either way, they're heading up north with these ideas and certain painting techniques, and these are starting to play a big role in the change of the north. With northern scholars, they're traveling to Italy. We see that they're hearing certain new ideas. They're like, "Hey, we're hearing this something about this new idea in science about astronomy. We want to go down there and check it out." And they're hearing, "Oh, what about these paintings, these sculptures?" So they're going down there and checking it out. So a lot of universities started in France and the Netherlands and Germany. A lot of them are some of them are getting some of these ideas from Italy and getting some of those experts. So you're starting to see a big change. Now, here's the biggest change about the Northern Renaissance. I would have to say it is the printing press, which is your answer to number 7. So if you look at number 7, Johann Gutenberg is traditionally given credit for inventing what? The printing press. Because here's the thing about Gutenberg is that in the mid 1400s, we see that Gutenberg is really trying to develop this new technique about being able to not have to write a big long book, that we can actually now print out a book. We can take some of that wooden block technology that was used by the Chinese, several years ago, because it's been around for centuries. The idea of carving out certain letters and then putting ink on it, and then taking those blocks and then putting them on paper. This idea has been around since China, but the problem is the thing is that it took a lot of time and effort to not only make the blocks, but also to be able to position them the right way to then do the printing. Whereas Johann Gutenberg, now, yes, it takes him a while to build the printing press, but once he has it built and once he can get the metal plates together, he doesn't have to worry about resetting them anymore, the plates anymore. And then he can start just knocking out page after page after page after page after page. And so we see this happening is that he starts to cast these little letters of the alphabet in Germany and puts them on metal plates. He locks the plates together and and he puts it on this wooden press, which actually is a wine press. And he kind of transforms this wine press, this big wine press that usually would crush grapes or pressed grapes. He uses it to put the plate on there and then lay the paper down, and then as he brings it down, it would press the two together, and then he would release, and then the ink, as it's coming up, the ink would basically come off and it would stay on the piece of paper. And so he created kind of a perfect movable typing printing system, and luckily it worked. And the positive about this is it's going to change the world forever, the world as we know it. Because with the printing press, it creates what is called the book revolution. Let me go back. The book revolution. And so what we see is that before, if you wanted to reproduce, it was very expensive because everything was done by hand. You had to write it all out. And it took a lot of skill and crafting to do a handmade book. And so a lot of paint stroking as well, paint stroking process. So, it was very difficult. You'd be lucky if you can get 2 books done in a year based with that method. So with a movable type, you can quickly get pages in and out, and it made it a lot faster and cheaper way to do so. And so by doing that, by being able to turn in more books, that brings the demand up, or sorry, it still brings the demand up, but also your supply is going up now. And so now you're dealing with a supply and demand issue, and so now you're able to lower the price a little bit with books because you have a little bit more supply. And so this is making it a lot easier. Now, the first book that obviously was printed was the Bible by Johann Gutenberg. So here's number 8, by the way. Number 8, Johann Gutenberg's invention has been described revolutionary because of what? It's right there. Easy access to books prompted more people to learn to read. What we start to see is with more books available now, going into the 1400s and later on, from here on out, is that it is giving more access to individuals with the opportunity to read. I mean, it's going to take years for people to catch on, but eventually it's going to help with books. So we see that this is huge. We see Gutenberg's first publication is the 1282 page Bible. We see that more printers are starting to pop up quickly in other cities, and so this is causing the spread of the book revolution further and further. And so we are seeing that this explosion of printed material is going to quickly spread Renaissance ideas, and eventually what you're going to see is not just the Bible being printed, but you're going to see other books, and one of those was Marco Polo's books, and we're going to talk a little bit later, is that Marco Polo inspired Columbus, who was from Italy, who was able to read that book, who then went to the Spanish to then get the money to go on his travels, which we'll talk more about the age of exploration. So philosophers and writers, we start to see that more northern humanists express their own ideas, combined interests of theology, fiction, and history. We start to see more different types of ideas are being shared. More philosophy is shared. Works within novels, dramas, and poems are now being written and passed out. We see that Desiderius Erasmus, combined Christian ideas with humanism. We see that he wrote Pure, Simple Christian Life, basically working as a priest, what is now the Netherlands. We see that he basically fanned the flames of discontent. What we see is with the Roman Catholic Church. However, the problem with Erasmus is that some of his theories, his ideas, were not well liked by the Christian Church, or the Catholic Church at least, and so they kind of censored him. Then brings on Sir Thomas More, a humanist who introduced to England by Italians living there, by English people. He studied in Italy. Erasmus also lived in England for a time, but during the stay, he became friends with an important fellow humanist and statesman, that'd be Sir Thomas More. More's best-known work is called The Utopia, contains criticisms of English government and society, presents vision of a perfect, non-existent society based on reason. So the idea of Sir Thomas More, what he writes about with utopia is your perfect world. What is your utopia? That could be a place where all I eat is cupcakes. I don't know. What's your utopia? A place where I can go to any basketball game I want. Okay, so it's your own kind of fantasy world, your perfect world. What would that look like? Your perfect government. What would that look like? And so that's what Sir Thomas More wrote about. Christine de Pizan, we see that this is an Italian-born writer. She wrote about the role of women in society. She did grow up in the French court of Charles V. Ultimately, the thing about her is that she ultimately had to support herself with the death, I believe, of her husband. She ultimately had to become a writer to support her 3 kids. Basically, what's interesting about her is she championed equality and education for women. She wrote a lot about how women should act during this time, and that how men should be treating women. And she basically was kind of an activist for women. And some of her writings were actually good. I think she started out writing for men, and then eventually used that opportunity to take that money and then go out and make a name for herself. And it turned out to work for her. She wrote The City of Women. Then there's William Shakespeare. Whether you believe he is real or not, he does play a part in a lot of the great writings of England. He's a famous English playwright. Plots not very original, but treatments of them were very masterful. I mean, I think a lot of his plots were pretty similar. You know, guy falls in love with girl, guy and girl can't be together. So guy, tries to see girl, girl tries to see guy, blah 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 blah. But some of the plots were very basic, but how he treated them, like how he went about it, like certain endings and twists and turns, he made some very well done works. Drew inspiration for ancient and contemporary literature. He also had knowledge of natural science, humanist topics expressed in his plays as well. So pretty well known in his time. Now, with the spread of the Renaissance, we start to see that this is the use of language choice of themes made plays appealing to even the uneducated. The thing about with Shakespeare is that what made him so popular is not all of his work was elite. Everybody could enjoy it in some ways. They spread a lot of Renaissance ideas to the mass audience, and also he was trying to play a little bit of realism and morality, unlike morality. So he was more trying to get more of a realistic feel instead of trying to play the morality. Okay, so by Shakespeare's death in 1616, London's scene of thriving theater district was growing, and we see that this ultimately is this is kind of what creates what we have going on in London today. I know in New York there's Broadway, but in London they also have a kind of a Broadway sense as well. They've had that for many years, and a lot of famous British actors try to make their names in London because of a lot of the plays there, even still today. And also too the Shakespearean actors. A lot of these actors that like Cumberbatch, Doctor Strange, and then also what's his name? Who played Loki? Those are guys who have been training in London and certain places to learn how to basically act every role. So other artists, what we see here is like literally counterparts, Northern Europe, also artists influenced by Italian Renaissance, adopted many Italian techniques. We see that a lot of these artists are using certain humanist styles. Italian artists tried to capture beauty of the Greek Roman gods in their paintings. Northern artists tried to depict people as they really were. So we start to see, instead of trying to go for the perfect person, they tried to go a little bit more down the realism act. We do see that happening a lot with the Renaissance. Duar, in 1940s, an artist named Albrecht Duar visited Italy. On his return, he used Italian techniques for realism and perspective. He did oil paintings unique to the Northern Renaissance, a lot of oil paintings outside of his window. We see Flemish school was created in the Netherlands, developed by Jan van Eyck in the 1400s, fused the everyday life with religious. Lit candle represents God's presence. So he created many works of art like that. Your answer to number 9, let me go back, is right here in these last 2 points. So also in the 1500s, Pierre Brigul, the elder, used Italian techniques as well. And so for number 9, how did the work of Flemish school differ from the Italian Renaissance paintings? It's right here. Paintings showed scenes of everyday peasant life, different from mythological scenes of Italian paintings. So we start to see that more realism is used and a little bit less myth. So if you need, again, like I said, if you always need to pause my videos to write down the answers so you can put on the forms later, feel free to do so. But that is going to do it for our talk of the Renaissance right now. We're going to do the Protestant Reformation in the next video. And then we have the Counter-Reformation. So the Protestant Reformation is, people like Martin Luther, John Calvin, and others challenging the Catholic Church and kind of letting them know, like, hey, like, that's not how you should follow God. And the Roman Catholic Church, eventually the Counter-Reformation is going to be them countering. So like boxing, like I punch and then they punch back. So it's kind of the back and forth that we're going to see and we're going to talk about during this time of the Renaissance. All right, that's going to do it. If you need to email me, feel free to do so. WeinlandP@manford.k12.ok.us. See you guys.